programs within the organization, but I'd really love to hear how, if you had an opportunity to run an organization right from scratch, what would be some of the things you could advise us to do well?
So, and we're going to let somebody else other than Adil answer. Since Adil knows your organization.
Sure. Maybe Munish, if you could help us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if I can take it. I think, one of the ways in which such questions get framed in HR as if it is between good and bad, I think I would like to, if you will allow me, Suresh, link the other question as well. So culture or projects about culture are framed as good and bad. This which is good versus that which is bad. I think that's some kind of a muddlesome way of doing it. I would rather frame it as a good versus good. So a culture which is represented by certain, for example, tolerance for mistakes versus value for perfection. So if you do that, then you are becoming very consciously choosing one of them over the other, and you are conscious that you are gaining something and you are losing something. I think one of the key questions I would encourage from your point of view to think about is, what do you want to gain consciously and what do you want to lose consciously? And when you do that, then you can define your engagement model that is in line with your business model as well. And there can be specific norms that are specific to different groups, because your organization, your business is slightly heterogeneous. So I'd like you to think and say that if that team, which is homogeneous for a company, what would you build? The moment you say that for everything we have to construct an overarching model, that the average will work out to be no good for none of the teams. So I think that's how I would like to.
Anand, are you saying look at the trade-offs?
Look at the
payoff on each.
Right.
Can I, in fact, we've actually researched some of this aspect, and it builds on something that you said. So what we found that, what creates highest linkage or strongest linkage between what people get, the employees get, and their ability to deliver results. There are actually three things. Okay, three things we've seen dominantly. First is the clarity they have of how their work connects with what that enterprise larger values, right? Why are we, how does my work connect with that? And a sharpest clarity from the leaders determines the first building block. So if that's not there, there ain't no chance in hell of getting there. The second, which needs to go hand in hand, is, are you playing gully cricket or World Cup? As in, what's the standard of excellence that is expected out of this group of people that need to deliver? And third is an environment of continuous feedback. Okay, so you've given what you want, you've given the standard of excellence, and you continually give feedback amongst the three. And we've seen if you put these elements, 30% of your business results is actually, it tracks against with these three parameters. So we've seen that the answer to solving these multiple dimensions, multiple environments, changing world, is to keep installing these through the leadership behavior as well as your policies and frameworks. Keep clarifying, keep setting excellence, and keep giving feedback.
Good evening. My name is Rita Rangnekar. I'm with IBS Business School, Mumbai. I teach HR and I also teach soft skills. I wish to ask a question from a teacher's point of view, actually. Because I teach HR and because there was a question which spoke about, is HR in search of an identity? And is there an identity crisis? And most of us agreed that yes, there is. Now, a lot of our students get affected by this. They're really interested in taking HR as a profession, but somewhere that identity crisis makes them have two minds about whether they should go in for an HR profession or whether they should not. The other myth that most of the students have is HR is very, very fancy in terms that it's a glamorous profession. I'm going to do training, and most of the trend is towards wanting to be a trainer. HR is all about training and doing all the fancy things like doing competency mapping and all those real things which don't actually happen in the HR profession. So how can I motivate my students, and how can I tell them that HR is about realities in life and not about fancy stuff?
So is your question about what you think the identity of HR is?
Yes, I would like to know how can I convey to my students what is the actual identity of HR? What should they be doing in an HR profession?
Let me take for a moment this question. Earlier also the point came up on HR identity. First we need to arrive at, is there an identity crisis? And if identity crisis, why? If we have answers to these two questions, then any of the students or any of our persons can be convinced whether we are on right footing or wrong footing. Let's look at it at this forum or any such forums. We all will be talking a very macro and high funda talks about HR, strategic partner, navigator, okay, which looks very interesting to all of us. When we get back to the shop floor, what actually we are doing? Is this policy adhered to? Is this guideline met with? Has this been delivered? Okay, so there is a dichotomy in the entire whole expectations. Are you as HR a strategic partner? Are you a strategy planner? Are you an implementer? Are you an enabler? Are you an external consultant? And these all perceptions are coming based on individual behaviors of role models of HR in the industry. We ourselves have to be blamed for. Suppose I take a role as an external consultant and I have succeeded in my company, then for rest of the world, HR is an external consultant. There is another person who is an executioner and he has succeeded in his company, so the role of HR is?
So Ajay, if I just take that, in effect you're saying there are different identities today, virtue, different luminaries, if I use the word, in HR in the country today.
One sec, hold on.
No?
Yes. One is that, if we are short of time, we can
No,
take off.
yeah, because I think we
Okay.
should allow for
Then
two more
I guess,
questions.
Adil
Adil,
can
you
take
have a
over.
view.
No, I have a view because let me tell you from a teacher's perspective, because I teach OD at Tata Institute. And what we do very systematically to create, and you're right, there is an identity crisis. There's no sense in denying the reality is there is an identity crisis. So we teach HR and then we teach finance and we analyze the balance sheet and then tell me what HR strategies could you adopt to change the balance sheet and its various numbers. So we take each number of the balance sheet and say, okay, now this is the balance sheet number, that's your worry. Now tell me, what are the HR strategies that you could adopt to change this number in the balance sheet? And like that, create a certain element of business orientation. Identity crisis, cured or not, I don't know, but in the long run, you will certainly change the perception of the profession.
The gentleman in the red shirt.
Good evening. My name is Gopalakrishnan. I represent BTP Technologies. I want to ask a fundamental question here. What should be our outlook when we do recruitment as an HR? Do we follow the conventional methodology or do we think radically? Now, this is my question. I'll just come to you why I'm asking this question is because conventionally, when we think about it, a civil engineer should go to a...
I will just hold you there. I couldn't get your question. Can you repeat your question?
My question is, as an HR professional,
Yeah.
when the fundamental task when you ask for recruitment, what strategy would you adopt? A conventional strategy or something radical which suits your business?
So can I just frame the question to the audience so that we manage time?
Sure.
Okay? So the question you have is, when you go out to hire people,
Right?
will you just do one standard method, or do you modify that or adapt that to what your context and situation is?
Absolutely.
Is that a question?
Along with that, what do you look at in the candidate? Suppose convention dictates that if it's a civil
So
engineer...
your question is, what do you look for? Why do you look
Absolutely.
for? So anybody take a shot.
Again, I think quickly, typical repeat of what I've said philosophically, that it again depends on what are you recruiting for, which industry that you're recruiting from, which level are you recruiting for, correct? For example, if you ask me if I recruit 11,000 people, I certainly have a filter process, correct? The complete funnel process. If I recruit the leader, just to give you one example, live example, I have a philosophy at the senior most level, me and my CEO, when we recruit, the first 7 to 8 seconds, the decision is made, in terms of what the person is, and then we deliberate, correct? In terms of those antecedents, references, stuff like that. So there is no straight-through answer. People might say that this is the answer, but I must say that, we haven't found 100%, kind of guarantee in any of these answers, correct? But I think as Steve rightly pointed out, if you are a good CEO, if you have 1 out of 2 recruitments, successful meaning that person really performed after he came in, remained there, the typical Hewitt definition of engagement, stay, say, and strive. So no perfect answer to that.
If you want a cliched answer, can I give you a cliched answer?
Yeah.
The cliched answer to your question is focus on identifying talent and less on the acquisition process.
Yes, that's exactly what you said.
Hello.
Yeah.
Just that, suppose if you do that, as you suggest, does an HR person really have the courage to encourage the talent to move laterally in the organization rather than? Does the HR manager have the courage within the organization to encourage a talent to move laterally within the organization so that his output is better to the business, and then, and his contribution is also valued and his loyalty and all other factors are also taken into account?
I think that's more of a rhetoric question. You have yourself answered that question. Unless you want me to say, yes, I agree with you, the courage has to be there for the HR guy to work with the CEO and develop a system where that lateral movement happens.
I will have to hold this here. I'm sorry. I think you should engage with Adil outside this room. Anybody from the back of the room who has a question, who wants to ask. Because being a backbencher all my life, I don't want you guys left out. Nobody?
Yeah, this is Shyam from Aptech. My question to Ajay and Rajendra. When you very candidly expressed that, and admitted that, the attrition level in the insurance sector is quite high. This is first time I heard that, this 100%, 140% is the attrition. Really, thanks to you. My question to Ajay and to you, that, when people are leaving in 3 months and 6 months, when do we get the time to engage with them? That's the first question. And the second question is like, selling insurance product is really complicated because, I interacted with the many insurance seller people. It's like combination of, understanding the finance product and selling it. Understanding product is a finance knowledge and selling it is marketing.
So what's
I don't
your
think,
question?
any person is so unique that, you'll find both qualities in the same person.
What's your question?
How do you handle this challenge?
No, I think
challenge
first
of?
all,
Challenge of training the people and when you get enough time to get engaged with the people when they are living in 3 months and 6
Okay, so you
months.
train them, they've left. Where's the opportunity for engagement?
So quickly, I think, again, I think it's a good question from that point of view, because this engagement and let's say, pat on the back, correct? You again have to be very practical in that. For example, we continuously, kept on doing Gallup and of course, some other provider now, but we keep doing the engagement, surveys. We also look at the results, and we look at the results of these 11,000 people who just came in about 3 months, 4 months back. Of course, there are some people who are 2, 3, 4, 5 years as well. So how much, let's say, weightage you give to that result compared to the 5,000 people that you have who are, like any other MNC, correct? So I think as an HR person, you have to take call. You don't have to actually get into, everything simultaneously. Otherwise, you will never be able to do your job, correct, as a strategic partner. So again, don't get into this, kind of myth that every person is engaged at the FLS level who's attracting at 100%. Absolutely not possible. Okay. So be practical there.
Okay, we have time for one question. The last question, lady there. At this table has hogged it. They got to go.
This lady, I think, has
And I think they're all from IBS.
Good evening, everybody. I am Shruti Singh, representing the Union Bank of India. My question is with regard to the public sector. I want to ask, how do we really bridge the generational gap in our organization? The person who joins now is exactly around 22 or 23 years of age, and the senior level is around 50 years of age, exactly the next level. So how do we bridge that particular gap?
Okay, so
you can take it here.
yeah, so that's always a tough one. And in public sector, one of the things that actually goes against in building some of this is an existing culture of a hierarchy. So senior I am, therefore I'm more right than you are, even if you are interacting with customer better. So what we've seen is leadership really works as a good solution, if there is a solution, to drive change in the way hierarchy is perceived. And people are able to participate in the process of execution of the work, connecting with the customer and so on. And there are some great examples of PSUs who have done this, particularly in oil and gas, BPCL, HPCL, and so on and so forth. SBI has some great examples as well. So, but leadership is your key lever, what you can work on.
Yeah. Are we allowed
Let me
another?
just give an example to this. If you want to bridge the culture, just see back at your own home how you are bridging that generation gap with your parents.
It's a nice one.
And if you practice that, nothing will go wrong.
Very nice.
You were done? Beautiful closure, Ajay.
I think this lady won
Oh,
behind.
I think Rini is saying time's up.
Oh, okay. I thought this was...
Sorry.
Okay.
that message has come for you.
No, we'll take those questions offline. So we've got plenty of time over dinner to have those queries answered. Thank you very much to Suresh and the entire panel for that very engaging discussion. We'd like to now request Mr. Samir Bhonsle, the Western Region Head of Shine.com, to please make presentations to all our guests. Thank you very much, panelists. If I could request you all to please step down and take your seats down below. Before we close, I'd like to just remind you that we will be having the lucky draw immediately after our closing address. So be prepared to be called out. If you're the lucky one, you get yourself an iPad. I'd like to now invite for the closing address Mr. Vivek Yatnalkar, Senior Facilitator, Coach and Leadership Council member at Pragati Leadership. Vivek has close to 2 decades of work experience, and during his corporate stint, he has worked in the fields of manufacturing, IT consulting, project management, service delivery, account management, global process management, BPO, and ERP implementation in India and abroad. And today is a facilitator, having trained more than 4,000 people over the past 6 years. He regularly conducts workshops for coaching, covering a diverse set of areas for senior top management, like leadership development programs, executive coaching, developing coaches, train the trainer, building and motivating teams to achieve business results, and much more. Can I invite you now, Vivek Yatnalkar.
All right, good evening. Today I stand here as one of the representatives from Pragati Leadership to share a possibility with all of you. The possibility which has become reality for some of our customers, and it's reality for some of the industries which are not our customers. I must also say, when I share this possibility with all of you, you will have a lot of questions. For some of the questions we do have answers, and some of the questions we don't have answers, and I guess we as a community have to evolve of how do we go about it. In next 8 to 10 minutes, I'm going to share with you 4 things. As you can see, the topic for my conversation today is role of HR in wholesome business growth. So the first thing I'm going to talk about really is what's wholesome and wholesome business growth. Number 2, I'm going to talk about why it's needed now. Number 3, the topic is what's the HR can do in it. And finally, I'm going to close with what has been Pragati Leadership's contribution in it. So let's get going with the word of what's whole and wholesomeness, and what are some of the thoughts which come in our mind. And really the word whole and wholesome talk about it's complete, it's balance, which follows natural laws, might be derives happiness out of it. When we talk about wholesome growth, and this is where really the context comes in, and I'm going to summarize, and that's why I say it's a possibility. The 3 key elements which really matter here. Number 1, the growth which takes care of all stakeholders. The stakeholders come from all dimensions, and basically we derive value to those. In other words, we also talk about people, planet, profit. In other words, we derive them like the businesses which are economically thriving, they are environmental friendly, and they are socially just all across. And the wholesome growth we're saying is your business taking care of all this. And in HR's role, the developing leadership, as we all say, it's really the wholesome leadership which takes care of this, consciously doing and facilitating wholesome growth. Why is it required? While we were making this presentation, we said, let's talk about horizon of 20 years. But today's topic stayed with 3 to 5 years, so let me stay with that. Let's say 3 to 5 years down the line, the new executive sitting in the office is asking a question, hey, what kind of work culture do we have? The same question, they can ask in two formats. The one on the right hand side, very happy and saying, oh wow, that's the work culture we have. Or one on the left hand side, oh my, bad, that's the work culture we have. While we have a lot of data available in the market, in the industry about wholesomeness, happiness, with your permission, I'm going to conduct some exercise right now. I'm going to flash 9 questions on the screen. And if the answer is yes, would you be willing to raise your hand saying that answer is yes for me or my company? Are you ready? Yeah? So here we go. Number 1, we regularly create higher value offering for all stakeholders. All right, 10%. I am fighting fit and healthy. All right. Okay, all true answers only, yeah? All right, 30%. We have active policy to protect environment. All right, 10%. For us, making profit is as important as developing people and nurturing the environment. All right, around 30. Our organization leverages people's natural strengths and gifts. All right, 8% there. Number 6, I get to spend good amount of time with kids and family regularly. All right, 15 there. I have a high emotional intelligence. All right. We actively contribute to community development beyond business. All right, few hands. And finally, we recognize that the culture of people care is a source of competitive advantage. All right, around 50-20%. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess the kind of answers we got from the audience has a sufficient, it's like sufficient inclination of think of, are we focusing on only one thing out of people, planet, and profit? I guess that's where, there's a need of talking about wholesome business growth. We had planned of doing small exercise, but when I looked at the size of the bag, we have given one insert in your bag. It will be quite difficult for you to find out, so I'm going to skip it. People who are interested in knowing how does organization track whether they are doing wholesome growth or not can contact us. There are 5-6 of us from Pragati Leadership, and there is a contact details in your brochure, the pack we have given. So I'm going to skip it. It will be difficult to find out the brochure from the reading material there. All right, the question, what can HR do? And there are 5 things, which I have listed, I'm going to share with you. Number 1, obviously, you can be the navigator or you can make people aware. If you're part of the boardroom strategy conversations, you can make people aware, hey, our growth only is in one direction. It's not wholesome growth. It's not balanced growth. Number 2, I'm very positive some of you sitting in the room are part of competency definition exercise. As the senior leader, one of the competency looked for is a strategic thinking. Just imagine we change the word strategic thinking to wholesome strategic thinking. The top leader is forced to define a strategy which is wholesome for an organization. So HR people who are involved in competency definition